Go into the world and tell every man that you meet, there is a man on the cross.
A Catholic Take. What you need to know right now. A bold synthesis of inspiration and information. Keeping you up to date on the news and issues from a courageous Catholic perspective.
A Catholic Take with Joe McLean starts now.
Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McLean. Praise be to God. It is good to be on with you. We're going to be talking about the strike on the church in Gaza, the Holy Family Church. 3 people are dead, 9 are wounded. And Pope Leo XIV seems to say enough is enough. And the Latin and the Greek patriarchs, I think, are on the same page here. There's a report out that Pope Leo stated on a phone call that it's time to stop the slaughter. We're going to have a conversation about this at 14 past the hour. I have asked Jason Jones from the Vulnerable People Project to be back on the team today to catch us up on that story and what we might expect out of that. That's coming up at 14 past the hour. I also want to talk with Dr. Anthony Stine. It's Fridays with Stine here at A Catholic Take, and praise be to God, it is Friday. There is a story over at Zenit. There's a couple of stories at Zenit. One, they're putting abortion images projected on the Basilica in Mexico. Like, what? I mean, this is the government doing it. This is uncalled for. The Vatican needs to condemn that. But there is an article over at Zenit demonstrating just how bad things are in the United States for the Catholic Church. Buffalo, you're on a list. And it ain't a good list, Buffalo. It's not a good list at all. In fact, you're one of the worst offenders in the entire country for infant baptisms. 1 in 344 Catholics in Buffalo, New York. It's a very bad number. The best in the country comes to Nashville, Tennessee, at 1 in 48. We're going to talk about that with Dr. Anthony Stine on the team today at 30 past the hour. And then whatever you want to talk about, it'll all be linked up over at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. By the way, can I give a special shout out to our sponsor, realestateforlife.org. You're looking to buy or sell a home? realestateforlife.org could be a great option for you, and it supports us right here. We get a tiny little commission out of that right here at the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. But you do need to tell them that the Station of the Cross sent you. Let's pray. Let's get into it. We're going to be including your intentions in our prayers today. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful, O Mother of the Word incarnate. Despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer me. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, and now your saint of the day.
Saint Arnulf of Metz, pray for us. Arnulf, or Arnold, was born in the late 6th century to a Frankish noble family. He and his wife Doda had 2 sons, Saint Clodulf and Ansigisel. When their sons were grown, Arnulf and Doda sought to pursue monastic life, as was more common in the early centuries of the Church. Doda retired to a convent, but Arnulf was prevailed upon to become Bishop of Metz instead. He faithfully advised several rulers, while practicing generous charity and strict mortification. Finally, Arnulf found a successor, and with his close friend St. Romeric, he became a hermit in the Vosges Mountains, where he died around the year of our Lord 645. Those who carried his remains back to Metz were forced to spend the night on the road without food, except for a piece of bread and a small vessel of beer. Through Arnulf's intercession, the bread fed the whole company with some left over, and the vessel of beer remained full no matter how much was drunk. Thus Arnulf is hailed as a patron of beer and brewers. Through his younger son Ansigisel, who married Saint Bega, Arnulf is a direct ancestor of Charles Martel and Holy Roman Emperor Blessed Charlemagne. For more about this day and others in the Church's calendar, visit thestationofthecross.com/saints and seasons. Saint Arnulf of Metz, pray for us.
And now your headline news. The Pillar reports Pizzabala's not sure that the Gaza strike was a mistake. Pope Leo XIV and the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem have strongly condemned the shelling yesterday of the Church of the Holy Family in Gaza. 3 people were killed and several more injured. In response to the attack, Pope Leo XIV issued a statement calling for an immediate ceasefire and referred to it as a military attack. While the Israeli government has said that the tank fire on the Gaza parish on July the 17th was not deliberate, Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa has expressed doubts. Sources close to the Patriarchate's chancery told the Pillar that some officials believe the strike could be a deliberate act of retaliation after Christian leaders recently condemned Israeli settler attacks on a West Bank Christian town. More on that coming up. Just the News reports Senate panel approves nominations. The Senate Judiciary Committee yesterday approved the nominations of former Trump attorney Emil Bove to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals and Jeanine Pirro to the U.S. Attorney's Office for Washington, D.C. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey and the rest of his Democratic colleagues walked out on the Senate Judiciary Committee after Chuck Grassley cut off continued debate. A nominee getting a favorable or majority vote in the committee historically means they will be confirmed in a full Senate vote. And Catholic Vote reports White House announces Trump diagnosis. Trump has been diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency, or CVI, a circulatory condition affecting blood flow in the legs. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt announced this just yesterday. And those are your headline news. The gospel today comes to us from Matthew chapter 12, verses 1 through 8. At that time, Jesus went through the corn on the Sabbath, and his disciples, being hungry, began to pluck the ears and to eat. And the Pharisees, seeing them, said to him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do on the Sabbath days. But he said to them, Have you not read what David did when he was hungry, and they that were with him? How he entered into the house of God, and did eat the loaves of proposition, which it was not lawful for him to eat, nor for them that were with him, but for the priests only. Or have ye not read in the law that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple break the Sabbath and are without blame? But I tell you that there is here a greater than the temple. And if you knew what this meaneth, I will have mercy and not sacrifice, you would never have condemned the innocent. But the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath. The Gospel of the Lord. Laus tibi Christi. This is such a powerful passage, I got to tell you. There is so much here. Boy, I could just geek out just on the Old Testament reference to David eating the bread of proposition. It's so good. Father Haydock said, How truly admirable is the conduct of the apostles, who would not depart from the company of Jesus, though pressed by the greatest hunger and fatigue, not even to take a little refreshment for the body. Loyalty. Praise Jesus. The Pharisees blame not the disciples for plucking the ears of corn as they passed by, this being allowed in Deuteronomy 23:25, but for doing it on the Sabbath day as if it had been a breach of the Sabbath. He goes on, the Pharisees here mildly rebuked our Lord, but afterwards, when he restored the withered hand, they rose up against him with such rage that they formed upon the spot designs of killing him, as in verse 14. When there is nothing great or sublime, they are more quiet, but when with his word only he restores health to the infirm, like furious beasts they grow enraged. So says Saint Chrysostom. Christ speaks of those loaves which were ordered to be placed on the table within the tabernacle and changed from time to time. This translation seems as literal as may be, and more intelligible than loaves of proposition or showbread. To refute this calumny of the Jewish leaders, Jesus reminds them of the conduct of David when pursued by Saul, who, reduced to the like extremity, eat of the bread which the priest alone were allowed to touch. There is so much going on just in that one reference. The showbread, these unleavened cakes that sat on a golden table, the tabernacle, one time per year, when all the men of Israel were gathered on one of the feast days, they were there before, and the priest would bring this table out before all of these Jewish men, or before all the Israeli men, and they would hold it up and they would say, "Behold God's love for you." This is a prefigurement, a type of the Holy Eucharist that would come. This bread is a type of the Holy Eucharist in the Old Testament that is brought into its perfection under Jesus and his disciples. There is a reference here not just to the Eucharist, but to the priesthood as well. Jesus and his apostles, the priests. It's a powerful understanding, and I would highly recommend a book called Jesus and the Jewish Roots of the Eucharist to you. In fact, as Holy Roman Emperor, I would require it to be read by every Catholic everywhere on pain of excommunication. It's that powerful. It's that good. You should read it. It goes on. Mercy and not sacrifice from Hosea 6:6. The meaning of this is, if you then approve of the mercy of the high priest who refreshed the famished, fatigued, fugitive David, why do you condemn my disciples? So says St. Jerome. The Ignatius Catholic Study Bible would say, I desire mercy, quoted from Hosea earlier. Jesus challenged the Pharisees to study and learn the meaning of this oracle. And Hosea's words here complete Jesus' apologetic against the Pharisees. His logic proceeds. 1, mercy is more important than temple regulations. Number 2, the temple laws themselves take precedence over the Sabbath. And number 3, therefore, mercy is more important than the Sabbath. Your heart. God knows your mind, and he wants your heart. Give it to him. We'll be back in 2 minutes. There was an attack on the only Catholic church in Gaza, Holy Family Catholic Church. 3 people are dead, 9 are wounded. And it seems like Pope Leo is making a strict call here for an end to a stop to the slaughter. The time has come to stop the slaughter, he said in a phone call with His Eminence Pizzaballa. Joining us now from the Vulnerable People Project, Jason Jones is back on the team. Good morning to you, Jason. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Joe. Great to see you.
It doesn't stop. It's like we just had you on. We were talking about the attack on the Christian village. The patriarchs stood there unified. It brought unity. The patriarchs were there unified, and some are saying that the attack on the Gaza church is retaliation for that. What say you?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You know, in the United States, we've been really the target for decades now of really aggressive propaganda from the state of Israel. And a lot of Catholics that I'm sure listen to your show for much of their life consumed Protestant and evangelical media where they were influenced by the heresy, I think the apostasy of Christian Zionism. And so it's hard for a lot of American Christians to understand what the rest of the world can see, that for 70 years, the state of Israel has been brutal, destroying hundreds of churches, hundreds of monasteries. Since the founding of the state of Israel, we've seen the Christian population evaporate in the Holy Land. In the West Bank, I was in the West Bank in January, and I really thought their fears were exaggerated, and I was hopeful for the Trump administration. But the Christians in Bethlehem, the Catholics in Bethlehem said, what Israel is doing to Gaza, they are going to do to us next. We saw this in Teba. Then when we see these religious communities stand together, we see an act of retaliation targeting the only Catholic church in Gaza. And Joe, as you know now, since the war has started, our organization, the Vulnerable People Project, initially we began evacuating pregnant women, wounded children, wounded women. And now this year we've been delivering food, at least one hot meal a week every Sunday to the Christians in Gaza. They all receive their one hot meal a week through Vulnerable People Project. We distribute thousands of meals every week to orphans in Gaza. There are 18,000 children in Gaza that don't have a living relative. And so it's hard for a lot of Americans to understand that this is brutal, it's intentional, and it's an act of ethnic cleansing. And these Israeli extremists, and that's what they are, they're Israeli extremists, they are more offended by the Christian presence in the Holy Land because of our belief in the Trinity than they are by Muslims. And I've witnessed with my own eyes the brutality that the Christians in the Holy Land face. I've witnessed Christians in Bethlehem having their homes taken from them, their homes destroyed, guns pushed in their face, women pushed down and beaten by these settlers who come from the United States with just this entitlement that they're going to brutalize the indigenous people of the land. And when you're looking at the Christians, these are the descendants of the oldest Christian community in the world. Their families have been there. Their families walked with Jesus Christ. They're the descendants of those who were in the upper room. And then these settlers coming from the United States and from Ukraine and from Russia, they show up and they brutalize our co-religionists. And so many people, and I'll be blunt, many people that are listening to the show right now have been cheering on the brutalization of our fellow Catholics. Ambassador Huckabee to Israel just this week mocked the Irish because Ireland has had enough, as Italy has had enough, and they're placing sanctions. And Huckabee tweeted out that the Irish must be drunk, promoting this old WASP Protestant stereotype of Catholics as drunks, told them to sober up. Did they fall into a vat of Guinness? And we as Catholics, we're not tribalists. I see the Vulnerable People Project serves Jews, Christians, Muslims, Yazidis, and others. But we do have a real responsibility to care for our own and to defend the oldest Catholic community in the world. And that's the Catholic community in the West Bank, Gaza, and Jerusalem. We've seen the Israelis steal a church in Jerusalem this year. They've bombed churches in Syria, in Lebanon, in Gaza. They're brutalizing Christians in the West Bank. And the church in America is silent. Our bishops need to speak up and echo the Holy Father. Prominent Catholics with big media followings need to take a risk and be daring and advocate for our co-religionists who are starving. The Christians in Gaza are starving. Our team disappeared. We're missing employees in the West Bank right now.
Really?
VPP logistics team is missing. They've been missing for 2 weeks. We lost an employee this week in Nigeria. A security officer was shot and killed.
That's horrible.
And we've been, it's and I'm on vacation. I promised my family I wouldn't work. And we left for vacation, not to, first world problems. And the Boko Haram is raging in Nigeria. Israel is raging in Gaza and the West Bank. And finally, we're seeing more and more lay Catholics speak up. And the Holy Father, Pope Leo, has been great. In fact, if you go to our website, vulnerablepeopleproject.com, you can see kind of to thank him. And I'm from the south side of Chicago. We, in our hot meal trays that we delivered, we printed the Chicago White Sox logo on all of the trays. And we also printed out these food trays. We also printed out thank you, Pope Leo posters just to thank him. And while our team was returning from that, they got pinned down for 36 hours by Israeli snipers. We thought we lost them too because it was the same week where 50 other aid workers were killed.
Wow.
So this is all intentional. Remember, this is the government that blew up pagers. You cannot tell me they've bombed every Christian institution, every church, and every hospital in Gaza repeatedly. Israeli snipers shot and killed women in church. No explanation, no apology.
Well,
quote unquote, accident after accident.
Let me jump in here real quick because that was interesting turn of events yesterday. Carolyn Levitt, at a press secretary, was asked, "Hey, what about this attack on the Holy Family Church? How did Trump respond?" She said, "Not positively." I thought that was a very interesting turn of events. But right afterwards, apparently Trump reached out to Netanyahu. Netanyahu issued a response. He wasn't going to, apparently, until Trump asked him to. So now he's issued a response saying it was an accident. A tank fired on this church. Now, what I find interesting about this is it's clear to me when I look at this picture, it looks like they were trying to shoot the cross and they missed. Praise be to God, they missed. But it's like they were trying to destroy the very symbol of Christianity in Gaza. That to me says that's another layer of vindictiveness. How do you see it?
Well, yeah. In fact, if you go to our website again, vulnerablepeopleproject.com, we have the Voices of Gaza where I went, we evacuated wounded Christians, and then we interviewed them in a clandestine location about a year ago, actually exactly a year ago. And these poor Christian women we're looking at social media as Israeli soldiers were wearing their underwear, breaking their crosses, smashing statues of the Blessed Virgin Mary in their houses, spray painting pornographic graffiti. And then there's so many quote unquote Catholic influencers and even Catholic writers for some mainstream kind of right wing publications that they'll apologize for every crime. Pay attention to who's doing this. You know, when Christians die, they'll go to social media and say, war is always hell. When Israel's caught committing war crimes, for example, Israeli soldiers are caught on camera raping Palestinians, they'll say, well, these things always happen. While at the same time, they're trying to foment anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian, anti-Muslim prejudice and hatred. But the reality on the ground is it's just the Palestinians are suffering. You know, this beautiful church, Holy Family Catholic Church, when we first started working with them, they said, listen, we're eating 800 calories a day. The Orthodox Church is only getting about 650 calories a day. I know you're a Catholic apostolate, but can you bring food to the Orthodox Church first? They're only getting 800 calories a day, but they said, can you bring it to the Orthodox Church first? Now we're providing their water needs, all of the water needs for the Christian community in Gaza. And they said, do you mind if we set up a water station for our Muslim families, friends, and neighbors? Of course not. You know, when a friend of mine's sister dropped from heat stroke as she was walking in the quote unquote safe zone, it was Muslim Palestinian men that rescued to try to save this Christian woman, but then were shot at by Israeli snipers. And my friend's 18-year-old sister, she was given permission to walk out and leave, and she was going to be attending university in the United States and joining her brother at Catholic University of America. It was Muslim Palestinian men trying to save her, and it was Israeli snipers shooting at the men that tried to save her. And but the reality is, it's one community. They want to be seen as one community, and none of them voted for Hamas. Only 6% of the people living in Gaza voted for Hamas. 50% of the population is under 18, and more than that wasn't voting age the last time there was an election. We now know that Israel and the United States supported Hamas, was encouraging the funding of Hamas because they didn't want a two-state solution and they didn't want the secular PA to win. So this is what we get. And who's suffering? The people of Gaza. And we have Americans who are drunk on the heresy of Christian Zionism. What's allowing all of this to happen is a brutal ethno-nationalist, repulsive ideology, Zionism, that foments racism and hatred. You know, how many times have we heard evangelicals say things like the Palestinian people are the reincarnation of the Amalekites, that they have to be eradicated for there to be peace? This is not how Christians talk. And the Palestinian community, has been indigenous for centuries. And many of those people go back to the time of Christ.
Yeah, it's something. I have friends that are, from the Middle East. And I remember them telling me the first time that years ago, they were like, Joe, you got to talk to the locals. They'll tell you a story different than what you're reading in the headlines. And it's so true. You talk to the people on the ground, you get a story you're never going to hear anywhere else. And that's why this is shocking to so many. Before we run out of time, though, I got to say, Jason, I am very much inspired by the fact that despite the difficulty, despite the horrible nature of war on their doorstep, I'm seeing unity between the East and the West in this. I think that's a great thing. Both Cardinal Pizzaballa and his Beatitude Theophilus are together, united as one. They went into Gaza today as one to bring aid, to bring awareness, and the rest. This is a good thing for the church. Don't you agree?
I do. And Pope Leo has inspired me with how relentless he has been, with his comments. But who has the power to stop this ethnic cleansing and genocide? It's us as American citizens, because we are allowing this to happen. And now every member of Trump's cabinet.
Do you think Trump's doing enough?
No. He's lost me. He's lost me. He lost me on this. He's lost me on Ukraine.
And you campaigned for
50 days to what? War with Russia? I did campaign for him, and I campaigned for him in the Middle Eastern Christian community. And I promised them that we would see a ceasefire in Gaza. In fact, I was called by someone in the Trump campaign, said, we know what you're doing for the Palestinians. Keep it up. And I went to Pennsylvania and I campaigned with the Middle Eastern Christians. And I said, we will get a ceasefire. We were promised a ceasefire. Would things have been better with Kamala? No. It's business as usual, though. We're seeing business as usual, but we as Catholics must be the voice for the persecuted. The oldest Catholic community in the world is being starved and bombed out of existence.
Amen. Well said. Jason Jones, it's a tough truth, but a truth that needs to be heard. I appreciate you being on the team today, despite the fact that you're on vacation. But be assured we'll be praying for your team. VulnerablePeopleProject.com, VulnerablePeopleProject.com. Check them out. Put a link to them in the show notes. Praise be to Jesus Christ. Welcome back to A Catholic Take, a bold synthesis of information and inspiration. I'm your host, Joe McClain, and here are your headline news. Ground News reports measles outbreak in Illinois and North Dakota have ended. Praise be to God. Health officials in Illinois and North Dakota confirmed that their state's measles outbreak has ended, marking a slowdown in the spread of measles across the U.S. As of Wednesday, there was 1,309 reported measles cases nationwide, including 21 new cases this past week. According to the CDC, Texas has the largest outbreak so far, 762 reported cases as of Tuesday, with, 9 new cases across 36 counties. And the Hill reports Trump admin to subject solar and wind projects to elevated review. The Trump administration plans to put solar and wind projects through an elevated review process, saying that moves towards approval will have to be vetted by the Interior Secretary's office. This includes decisions to lease new land or water for wind and solar, approving projects on the land, and other activities like grants and assessments of endangered species impacts, etc. President Trump said last month, quote, "We're not going to approve windmills unless something happens that's an emergency," close quote. Bitter Winter reports new crackdown on Catholic conscientious objectors in China. Despite the agreement with the Vatican, China continues to arrest priests, nuns, and believers who refuse to join the CCP-controlled Patriotic Church. Pope Leo XIV is reportedly deliberating on the future of the recently renewed Vatican-China deal from 2018. Meanwhile, authorities in Beijing are intensifying their crackdown on Catholic conscientious objectors who oppose the agreement. Since April of 2025, raids orchestrated by 6 government departments, including the Religious Affairs Bureau and local police, have terrorized Wenzhou's underground chapels. Many priests have been forcibly evicted. Worship spaces shut down, and the families of clergy threatened with job loss unless they convince their loved ones to switch sides. The result is staggering. 90% of underground worship sites are now closed. Thank you, Theodore McCarrick. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And those are your headline news. It's Fridays with Stine over at returntotradition.org. Good morning to you, Dr. Stine. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. How are you?
Praise be to God. I'm alive, and that counts. And I'm happy to have you back on the team today. Let's talk about only good news today. How about that? Only good news. Here's a good news story. Actually, it's not. I'm being facetious. There are the dioceses with the most and fewest baptisms in the United States. This is a bad thing. This is not a good thing. And I have to just say, Buffalo is on this list. Buffalo, New York, it's not a good look, Buffalo. We're going to get into that here in a moment. But what is this data? What is the story?
The numbers in that story blow my mind, especially since the best diocese in the country is Nashville, with 1 baptism in 48 Catholics, which I actually had people in my comments going, "Oh, this is great news." I'm like, no, that's not good news. That's 1 baptism in 48 Catholics is a bad thing.
Infant baptism.
We're supposed to have statistic. Right. We're supposed to be having lots of babies, guys. In case you're forgetting this, we're supposed to actually,
well, the United States is below aren't we below the required 2 children level to keep our civilization up and running? Like Europe is way behind, but we're not far off of it, aren't we?
We're around 1.6 to 1.7, somewhere around there. In Catholics, contracept at nearly the same levels as the culture, and abort and everything else at nearly the same levels as the culture. So
we're not having kids.
Those numbers should be higher. No, we're not. And
if we are having kids, we're not baptizing them.
That's the other part of this. When you can start digging deeper into that story, you start seeing things like, and putting it into context of other studies, things like most Catholics only go to Mass once or twice a month. most Catholics are, that practice the faith, don't accept the church's teaching on things. Well, there's a lot of people who call themselves Catholic who don't go to Mass at all. And when you put all those numbers together, you start seeing something where eventually the person who calls himself Catholic and stops going to Mass, of course, stops going to Mass, stops calling themselves Catholic entirely. And so even the cultural Catholics, those who go to Mass 4 times a year, they stop getting their babies baptized. They stop doing any of those things. And so that's how you get numbers where it's only 1 in 48. And then the one thing I haven't seen any numbers on is the average number of children per Catholic broken down between, I call myself Catholic because I'm Italian, but I haven't been to Mass since confirmation, all the way to the, daily Mass goer. I haven't seen anything that breaks down the numbers across the board like that. And I'd really like to see the data on how many Catholics have children on a regular basis, actually have children, and how many children do Catholics have on average, and compare that to the culture, including to Protestant groups. Some of the families, the largest families I've ever met, were Protestant families with 9 children, 12 children, whatever it is.
Sure. Yeah.
More, in fact, it seems in my own experience, anecdotally, to be more Protestant families that I've met, or Mormon families, than Catholic families with
Mormons,
that number
Amish,
of children.
Amish, they still have a lot of kids. Of course, Muslims still have a bunch of kids, but Catholics have been declining severely. I do want to kind of pull out some highlights from this list in this article. We're going to link to it. It's a zenit.org article. We'll link to it in the show notes today. You can also find it at returntotradition.org, along with his video on this subject. I do recommend that. But Nat, you already mentioned Nashville's at the top. So they had these are ratios, infant baptism ratios, 1 per 48 Catholics. That was the best number out of the entire country, was Nashville. Tulsa, Oklahoma, your backyard, coming in at number 2. Not surprised. Tulsa, Oklahoma, up until the recent TLM, cancelization of the diocesan parish there, and a great reputation for being a good Catholic community there with lots of options for the families. A good place to live, Oklahoma. It's very affordable. You can still buy land at affordable rates over there. Low taxes, very conservative, very family friendly. Oklahoma's a nice choice for a lot. And it's in at number 2. Tyler, Texas, my backyard, is down at, it's at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Coming in at number 7 is Tyler, Texas, 1 per 60 for Tyler, Texas. So those are the good news. That's the good news. Then you get into the bad, the other end of that spectrum. Down on the bottom, Boston, Massachusetts, 1 per 260. Boston. Massive, massive city. Millions of people live in Metro Boston. How many of those are Catholics? A bunch, maybe in name only, but nonetheless, only 1 per 260. When you're beat out by Tulsa, which is the size of Peabody, Massachusetts, which is just a borough of North Boston, and you can't beat them, hang your head. You need to be really contemplating where you're at in the world right now. Erie, Pennsylvania, we have a radio station in that neck of the woods, 1 per 268. Galveston, Houston, my archdiocese, this is now my backyard, on the worst list. 1 per 275. We have 7 million people living in this metro area. We have 2 million Catholics, and we're only baptizing 1 per 275. We're hanging our heads in shame today. Buffalo, New York, you're worse. Buffalo, New York, 1 per 344 Catholics. It's not good. It's not a good look. And this couples nicely, I suppose we could say, with that stat that came out from Eric Sammons reported on it. It was Pew Research. For every 1 that comes in, 8 leave out the back door. We're not doing well, are we, Dr. Stine?
No, and this is why I am constantly not talking about cheery things, because these kind of statistics are, as one of the articles that I went over talked about on this data, described as existential. You're talking about, if things don't turn around, there are going to be so very few Catholics in the future that I don't even know what the institution of the church is going to look like in the United States if things don't turn around. what is the diocesan structure going to look like? How big our diocese is going to be? There's near universal agreement that dioceses are already too large geographically and that you need more bishops, meaning you need smaller dioceses. But when you have 1 in 48 infant baptisms in the best place in the country, and it's a terrible number, but 1 in 48, then you begin to see how you get a vocations crisis. Because of Catholics contracept at levels nearly the same as the culture. Yeah. Well, if they're contracepting, it also means that they're rejecting church teachings on a number of things. But if they're contracepting and having maybe 2 children, then they're not. Then you don't get vocations. So these are all tied together, and it's heading somewhere. Unless things turn around.
We do have some good news. Before we go to the break, I want to bring some good. There's some good news here. Praise be to God. I saw an article over at the Remnant. For the sake of Christ's love, stop it. Swiss bishop blasts his synodality. A Swiss bishop, didn't see that coming. Wasn't on my bingo card, kind of like the Yeti Blood Oath thing, which we'll get to after the break. But a Swiss bishop is speaking out against the synod on synodality rollout. What's the story?
No, Bishop Marian Eleganti has he's off again and on again, writes letters to the public only when he generally has something to say. And in this case, he's basically asking the Pope and the rest of the church to stop with the synodal stuff, that it's time to stop, that this is all a big distraction from rather important things like the apostasy going on all around us right now, where people, 1 Catholic enters the church, 8 leave. That seems to be a bigger problem, the widespread lack of belief in the real presence, because either Catholics somehow got the idea in our heads that the church doesn't teach the real presence. They teach that it's a symbolic meal thing. You ask Catholics, a disturbing number of Catholics think the Eucharist is symbolic. That means there's a very serious problem going on. And all of these things are well within the purview of the bishops to fix. I
like how he says, stop multiplying yourselves in working groups and commissions. The people of God are not interested in this. That is some clear, stark language. This is the kind of thing that guys like you and me just long to hear, because we want this level of clarity, and he is saying it. I mean, I don't even know much about Bishop Eleganti, but he is saying the thing out loud that many of us have been saying quietly in dark corners and been lambasted for this.
Yes, it's when you dare to say, hey, maybe the bishop should worry about the people coming to Mass who haven't gone to confession since last Easter or even longer than that and received the Eucharist. And you're not pointing the finger at anyone in particular, but we've all kind of noticed that if in most places, confession lines are relatively short and communion lines are relatively long. Maybe they should worry about that. Maybe they should worry about the fact that people don't believe in the real presence, that people contracept and abort at the same levels that their secular counterparts do, or close enough to it. That we should worry about these things. And instead, for whatever reason, we see bishops sometimes get in trouble. I reported on a story earlier this week of a priest in Europe who got canceled, basically. He has to stay hidden in his house because somebody reported him to the secular authorities. Why? Because he dared to tell his parishioners to pray for the people who don't come to Mass on a regular basis.
Wow.
Well, that's where we are. Okay.
Not a good look. Not a good look.
No, not a good look. Applause to the priest who did the most basic thing. But
the bishop also says, stop keeping the church in a never-ending synodal frenzy. While you speak of mutual enrichment, the real problems in the church are not being discussed. The mass apostasy of the baptized from essential tenets of the faith, such as the divinity of Jesus and his bodily resurrection, the problem of liturgical formlessness and widespread abuses in the Novus Ordo, no priestly vocations in many countries, widespread heterodox preaching in catechesis and university theology, pastoral practices that contradict Catholic teaching and canon law. He says, I can no longer listen to your propaganda, and I suspect that I'm not the only one. Before Pope Francis, the church was never governed in such an authoritarian and manipulative manner, with this never-ending synodal attempt to achieve predetermined results. But God has not come, but God has not come. At least not yet. And by its very nature, it is futile to wait for him. What has come is the evolution of doctrine, a shifting sand dune, not the rock of Peter. Whoa. Is this Bishop Strickland? No, it's not Bishop Strickland. This is a Swiss bishop. You didn't see that coming. It wasn't on your bingo card. Neither was Yeti Blood Oath at a seminary in Denver. But that's the times we live in. More on that in 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere. I just want to thank our sponsor, iCatholicMobile.com, for helping us to stay on the air across all of our radio network, our video streams, podcasts, and so much more. A piece of every customer's bill that gets paid every month at iCatholicMobile.com comes to us right here at the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. It's a fantastic way to support us and at the same time have a phone company that's Catholic. Is your cell phone company Catholic? I'm just curious. iCatholicMobile.com for more of those details. We're having a conversation with Dr. Anthony Stine over at returntotradition.org. It's Fridays with Stine. And I want to get, Dr. Stine, welcome back. I want to get into the Yeti thing. This was hilarious, actually. I mean, it's disturbing and bizarre, but it's also kind of funny. It's like the influencer culture of social media meets seminary. How did you take the story? There you go. You're back.
I opened my talk on this with the words, "Don't be weird." Got to remember, if you're a seminarian or a public-facing Catholic of any kind, you may have noticed in the last 20 years or so, Catholics have grown very weary of weirdness in the clergy and among public Catholics. And then you compound this with the broader cultural turn in the last few months, where people suddenly have lower tolerance for people being weird. People desperately want the culture to get back to just people being normal. And so don't be weird, first and foremost. But it's also a really bad look for seminarians to be involved in anything that looks even vaguely like a secretive cult-like ritual.
Right.
Which
yes,
this was what it looked like. I mean, you should have seen the comment section on my video on that. People were saying, look, these guys need to have a visit from an exorcist. It turns out the diocesan exorcist is has already had a conversation with many of these people. But
really?
Yeah. Apparently, yeah. I would just caution people from thinking that necessarily this is, the worst, most evil thing that's ever been done, but it was clearly probably the dumbest thing they could possibly do, short of having a beach party at a certain former Cardinal's beach house, right? But again, we live in the aftermath of that stuff. Yeah. So, if you want to take your seminarians on a field trip, how about take them on a field trip to some Catholic things in your diocese that people have otherwise forgotten about? Most dioceses have Catholic landmarks that people have forgotten about. Take them on, mission trips to help people who need material things, the corporal works of mercy. Or, better yet, go knock on doors on some of those Catholics who have stopped going to Mass. Put that missionary spirit into your typical young priest. That might be better than going to a cabin of a layperson who apparently has a history of putting on the Yeti costume and doing this to people who come to his house, which he should be having a conversation with the exorcist, by the way, just as a thought.
But it does. I talked about this earlier with Anthony Abate from Avoiding Babylon a couple of days ago. We're talking about the story of the Voice of Reason, scandal, and the influencer culture. I think it really has infected society in a way that's not healthy and not good. I see the Yeti story in that same category. I see this is the kind of thing, although there was hazing rituals in the Marine Corps back in my day in 91 when I joined. And we had plenty of hazing rituals. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have social media, but we had hazing rituals. It did include somebody dressing up in a costume and swearing blood oaths. So we had other types of hazing rituals. So it's not new, but at the same time, I feel like this is a byproduct of a culture that's taken hazing and this sort of activity to a whole nother level. Influencer challenging their audience to do crazy things. And every once in a while, we'll see headlines about kids getting hurt or dying trying to perform one of these, TikTok challenges or whatever. Do you see it from that perspective?
Yes, I think there is something to be said about that too. There's, we all remember that Tide Pod challenge, don't we? Right. I used to joke with people before I was online saying, hey, what's next? The, raw chicken breast challenge. But
wow.
It's gotten to the point now where you'll have people who will be tourists who will go to like Asian countries and do things to anger the local population. And their population isn't so numb to this stuff that they will actually form angry mobs and go after people. So again, this is a big problem, and it's infected the church clearly. You see, sometimes with performative piety or people filming themselves doing acts of charity and things. And you might think, well, what's wrong with filming yourself doing an act of charity? I'm like, well, you're not supposed to do that. It's supposed to be quiet, private. And then you compound this with, even when their cameras aren't around, even though you notice this about the Yeti story, they filmed it, right? There were numerous videos of this out there, and and they weren't going to release all of them for good reason. I'm glad that, the good folks at the Pillar said, hey, let's not release this stuff. Right. It's sort of like I've kept my mouth shut largely about the scandal with the influencer because I don't want to pile on to the person. I think he has every right to defend himself. But he issued a public statement that ignored half the things said against him, which is not good. But in that case, too, there are allegedly people with pictures and videos and things out there. So there is this definite infection, this sort of narcissistic infection among Catholics that comes from influencer culture. Absolutely, it does. And it feels weird saying that because kind of you and I are kind of in that business ourselves. So it's
we're on the fringe. We are on the fringe. I like to I create extra content for my YouTube channel or whatever. And one of the things I do is walk around with a Insta360 camera on a nature trail, and I talk about issues in the church or whatever, give my opinion of it. I call them walk and talks, but just like that, there's this culture now where you could be at a grocery store going about your normal business, whatever. And then there's some guy with a camera, some girl with a camera there, and they're getting into your face. They're putting you in a situation that you're not comfortable with, and they're going to put you online. I think this latest generation, maybe the last couple of generations, has normalized that to the point where I'm like, again, I go back to the Yeti story. I see this as like a holdover from that. Like, people think that's normal now. Like, it's okay. It's perfectly fine to act and do crazy things in public with your camera so you can put it online. Like, no, there's no, where's the filter? There seems to be no filter for common sense.
It's gotten to the point now where, weirdly, my favorite variation on this narcissism are you'll have these young women who will dress inappropriately with a camera on them, go up to total strangers who are men and offer them either a certain amount of money or a quote night with them. And the guys it's to the point now where the guys are responding, I'll take the money. They're just smacking down this narcissism. And it's absolutely funny watching the most horrible kind of influencers get humiliated, yet they still put the video up.
Isn't that something?
And you have to ask yourself,
God help us.
They still put the video up? Why would you do that? This didn't go the way you thought it was going to go. And now you're just going to put the video up for the whole world to see. But you're seeing people are really tired of this. Like, I've seen footage of people, like food influencers, trying to, in a grocery store, filming themselves, telling you how bad whatever food X is and what you should eat. And people are around them and just yelling at them while they're filming. And they still put the video footage up anyway.
Yeah.
But people have
it gets clicks. It gets clicks. I got accosted at the Washington Monument in D.C. by some YouTuber with a camera trying to act crazy. And I'm just like, dude, leave me alone. I do not want to be on your channel. Leave me alone. I had to threaten him before he would actually leave me alone. It's something like Patty says in the chat box, when Jesus returns, will there be any faith left? He did warn us. In his defense, he warned us. We just didn't listen, did we? Let's pray. Let's pray for our seminarians, our young men to go to seminary and have a wee bit more common sense than engaging in social media Yeti blood oaths. Not cool. Not a good look.
And we're back. Welcome to the after show, everyone. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Nelson. Good morning to you. Jane, good morning to you. Sci-Fi Mike, good morning to you. Kevin, I see you there. Good morning. Thanks for hanging out with us in the Telegram group this morning. Mary, you are amazing. Good morning to you. John Paul, good morning to you. Thanks for, or JP. It's JP. Is it John? Is that a short for John Paul? I have a son named John Paul. That's why I ask. Jack Burton tweeting toes over there. Donald, Yvonne, good morning. Jane, good morning to you. Sharon, good morning from sunny Orchard Beach. Is it Orchard Beach, Maine? I forget now. Yes, it is Old Orchard Beach, Maine, from sunny Old Orchard Beach. Not much of a beach there. It's rocky. It's quite lovely, though. Good morning to you, James 16897. Trad Herb Brooks is back in the chat from sunny Virginia, I'm guessing. Wow, good to see you. Thanks for hanging out with us today. T-Storm, good morning to you. Praise be to God. Nelson says they don't get embarrassed because they have no modesty or purity of heart. Just the fact is, when you go out, the chances are getting greater that you're going to get caught up in somebody's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube shenanigans. And I'm just like, as a YouTuber guy who does YouTube too, I'm not all that comfortable with that, which is why I prefer to walk on nature trails and you're not bothering anybody. You're sort of staying out of everybody's way. Susan Webb, good morning to you. Ave Maria. Cigar Mode is back and number 3 on the leaderboard over there on YouTube's. Welcome. Says, don't eat meat today, but eat it every other day. Amen.
Mm-hmm. Yum.
So yeah, no meat today. So instead you should have lobster. You should have crab dipped in garlic butter. You should have prawns.
You should go to some very hoity-toity sushi house.
Yeah, 100%. Go full penance today.
Go to one of the places where they don't have a menu. You eat what the sushi chef makes.
Ooh,
because that's the real Japanese culture.
Oh boy,
I always loved that. People going, I'm doing penance today. They say as they go march off to go.
Oh, have you been to Buffalo? Have you been to Fish Fries in Buffalo? An entire
no, but I can't really do fish as a general rule anyway, but I don't understand, but I do like fried fish. So I don't understand why you would eat something you actually really, really enjoy on a day of penance.
In Buffalo, the average fish fry is about the size of this keyboard I'm holding up here.
That's the size of the fish I had in Australia when I actually had Australian fish and chips. It was about that size. The thing was gigantic.
You got a plate with so that's just the fish. The beer battered fish itself.
Is that a sea bass or what is
it's
that?
It's haddock, usually haddock or cod.
Haddock.
Usually haddock. Okay. And
nice.
So it's beer battered.
But there's a lot of bones, right?
But nope, boneless. And
boneless.
Yeah, okay. Boneless. It's one big fish fillet.
Nice.
Beer battered, and then that's just the fish. Then there's usually a mound of potato salad, a mound of coleslaw, and a mound of French fries.
And
then a side of rye bread. With
Friday
butter.
penance. Yep. Friday penance. What can you do?
Yeah,
sauce.
Friday penance.
Exactly.
It's just Friday penance. Then you can do about that.
I'm doing penance eating with 5,000 calories of carbohydrates.
That's
right. Exactly. Then you got to have tartar sauce, and you got to add the accoutrement.
Yeah. That's why we have to return to the. We have to return to the old rules. We have to be like. We have to be like the East.
You're right. Don't mean.
We have to be like the East and give up another food item every Sunday leading up to Lent. Suddenly, no eggs, no this, no that. Then you'll really be penancing.
Well, for me, Fridays are still penitential because it's fish day, but we get the salmon from the grocery store, and it's always horrible. It's always bad. Even if you get it says we're careful to not buy farmed, salmon, but even still, it's just bad stuff. It's not great. I'm forcing it down every time. It's really. I look forward to getting the prongs. Those are good. Those are tasty. And if I can convince my wife to buy me the halibut or what is the other stuff that's actually quite good? Oh, my brain is Friday. My shut off.
The Chilean sea bass that they sell at Costco. That stuff is tasty.
Sea bass is not bad. It's good. It's good. No, I was thinking of now I can see it in my mind. It's like a little steak almost. It's like this thick. It's like a steak, and now I can't remember.
Swordfish?
Swordfish is
swordfish?
Good. I rarely get swordfish, but I like swordfish actually. It's quite good. No, this was something else.
They sell Walmart frozen, so I don't know. But I don't know. I found it's easier since moving to the Midwest or the heartland in general. Eating fish is always the fish here just doesn't sit well with me. But I'm from Portland, Oregon originally.
Right. Yeah. So you were spoiled.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So
tuna. Thank you, Joe Bloggs. It was tuna. Thank you.
Total fasting is actually, I found it much easier. Honestly, it just makes it easier.
If you just know you're going to do it and you do it, it's pretty easy to do it. Get used to doing it for a whole day. It really is.
Yeah. And in many ways,
have
it's
some black
tasty.
coffee, have some sparkling water because that makes you feel a little more full than still water. does. You're good.
Make sure you get your electrolytes. Get some electrolytes,
some
0
salt,
calorie
at least,
electrolytes. And you're good.
Don Franco
even
says,
just
"Where's
pinch of
Rob
salt.
Morrow? He might be in the chat. I don't know. He's not been on. I haven't had him on in a little while. I have been chatting
He
with
told
him.
me
though.
yesterday.
He'd be in the chat today. It's Fridays with Stine. He loves to hang out in the chat box. We'll hopefully get him on soon. Gwen said, "Good morning to you. Thank you for reminding me it was tuna. Yes, tuna that I was talking about. They got these little steaks. They're so tasty. I love them. Sci-fi Gus DMH. Good morning to you. Lynn Pine. Honey West. Good morning. Good to see you back. Says Joe, I'm outraged over the reports from Jason on the conditions in the Holy Land. I live near the biggest Hasidic community in the world next to Israel for over 30 years. I can tell you they hate non-Jews. I was once surrounded by a bunch of little Hasidic boys on a school trip trying to trigger my dog. Chaperones did nothing multiple times. Please think about making the interview with Jason a shorter clip for today's show. I'll post it on all platforms that I'm on. Thanks." As they say, you got my Irish up, and sent a comment out to Huckabee on it. Can you believe Mike Huckabee lambasting the Irish, calling them drunk Catholics? I mean, I'm paraphrasing his words. Those were not his actual words.
If you want to alienate Catholics from the conservative movement, right when the time conservatives are suddenly getting all the Catholic votes, then go right ahead. That seems really
typical
short-sighted.
Evangelical move there, Mike. Congratulations. Your low-hanging fruit insults. Well played, sir. Well played. Good grief. And his daughter was one of the greatest comms ladies under Trump first administration, but I think her dad can learn a thing or two from her about how to respond to these things.
Speaking of controversies, can I defend those seminarians for a second?
Oh boy,
we go. I'm not actually.
Here we go.
But what I am going to say.
Put on your Yeti suit first, though.
Yeah,
I want to. You got to put on your Yeti suit.
Bumbles bounce. Yeah, but the the thing to keep in mind, and Dr. Stein kind of touched on this about what a Catholic seminary should be doing. But basically, if the sort of established structure, the established power structure, the established hierarchy, if it's not providing rites of passage for young men, even ones in seminary that feel like rites of passage, if it kind of just feels like you're at, basically, this is just another kind of career, when vocation means whatever you're called to is vocation, then men are going to seek out some other alternative, and without guidance, they're going to do goofy, dumb stuff like that.
They're young men too.
Exactly, they're young men. Young men are stupid. Take it from me.
They're not mature yet.
Yeah. And so if they don't have good authority figures, and the authority figures aren't providing them with real solid rites of male passage that feel like rites of male passage, and that doesn't have to mean crazy hazing, but that should be something that you're trying to strive for, and something you have to endure, or something you have to go through, that isn't just this is just school with graduation, but a little bit different. I go to my special school, and I have my special graduation where I become a priest, and then I have my career, not vocation, but my career as a priest.
Yeah.
That's the way that the priesthood is really treated, if not in words, definitely in fact, in pretty much the church, definitely the U.S. I've seen it. I've seen it with people I've interacted with, priests and seminarians I've interacted with. That's how it ends up getting treated. Even if they won't say that, that is how they will act.
I think you're right. I think there does need to be a rite of passage.
Yeah,
ingrained into the formation.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, there are ways to do that. There are the old structure clearly provided something more like that. There is. We used to have minor orders on the way to the priesthood. It wasn't just go to school, become a deacon, become a priest. You had the minor orders. There were 7 steps. So there's basically when the established structure is not providing that feeling. It's in many ways, it's kind of a feeling. It's an emotional, but psychological, mental process you have to go through, along with whatever physical things are needed. It doesn't have to be, the same type of like hazing type of thing. But if they're not being provided with something that feels like a rite of passage in that way, then they're going to seek out their own thing. And being young men, they're going to seek out something dumb usually. So
I think that if it were me as Holy Roman Emperor, I would require all seminaries around the world to teach boxing. Doesn't have to be a humiliating experience at all.
Sure.
But boxing would be part of the core curriculum. I would even say, maybe even kickboxing. I wouldn't do just BJJ. Good grief, rolling around the ground all the time. Be a man, stand up and fight. But boxing in some form or another is a combat sport, but one that can be regulated and done in a certain safe environment way.
That's a cool idea.
So that's a rite of passage all by itself. Just like in something I've said often, even in the troops of St. George, something I would like to recreate. I'm going to say this is going to sound crazy coming out of my mouth, but like for our boys, the troops of St. George, it'd be great if we could punch them in the face. Now, why do I say that? Okay, hear me. This is the context here. Because in the Marine Corps, we went to boot camp. We had to be punched in the face because many men hadn't been. They don't know what it's like, and they're afraid of it. They were afraid of it. And we needed to get that out of the way so they could stop being afraid of just being punched in the face so that they can move on to the next phase of combat training. So that life lesson, it's the life's lesson, the principle I think is very good. How do we recreate that? Not so harsh as the military, but in another way that's useful to take that lesson and apply. And I think these men need that. Boxing will take them through that phase in a very good way, in a very disciplined way. And then you couple that with other rites of passage. I like the idea of making them go, like, why not assign them to the Vulnerable People Project or Cardinal Pizzaballa and let them distribute aid in Gaza? Like, that would be like a scary, crazy good rite of passage, right? It'd almost like be going through a combat zone. And I'm like hiking the mountain on a 4-day, through hike where you have to carry everything on your back and there's so many opportunities to do masculine activities that are guided, that have a spiritual layer on top of them, but they're also very masculine and very physical. That I think you're right. I think that would go a long way to maturing them. That would go a long way to guiding them and directing their energy and their maybe their immaturity a little bit. Because otherwise, in the culture of social media influencers, you get Yeti videos.
S.E. Webb just undercut us, though. He said young men should be getting these rite of passages from their what?
Susan Webb.
S.E. Webb?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Susan? Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Susan says young men should be getting these rites of passage from their fathers, ideally.
100%. I agree.
Yeah. So before you even get to seminary, you should have gone through this at a younger age.
I agree.
So
I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, that's how I take my boys out. I take them.
Yeah.
I take them. I remember my son Daniel, the first time we walked into the Sam Houston National Forest at 4:00 in the morning in the pitch dark. He was scared beyond. He was so scared. It's scary. You're walking into Mirkwood in the middle of the night.
Lisa, our discussions
spiders are as big as your head.
Lisa, our discussions are always ridiculous.
It's true.
But anyway, she says we should be embarrassed by something.
But what should I be embarrassed by?
Well, she says that there are then in the Western Church 4 minor orders: porter, lector, exorcist, and acolyte. The cantors merely exercise an office and are not in order. And that apparently nothing in the gospel says to learn how to box. Nothing in the gospel says to comment in YouTube chats, Lisa. So you're going to hell.
Actually, you're right. Nothing in the gospel is specific to boxing, but in St. Paul's epistles, there is something specific to boxing. He uses the boxing metaphor to talk about the spiritual combat and to endure until the end. To fight, to train yourself like athletes.
Yep.
So the idea here is that the boxing as a sport, when done in that realm, not like crazy street fights, but like you got a coach, you got a regiment, you're in a gym, you're doing things according to this regiment, and you're boxing each other with all of like the safety gear and all of that. Like, it's good for men are built this way. This is part of our nature. Our nature as men is to be leaders, protectors, and providers. So it's how God designed us to be prepared for combat sports in order so that we can come to the defense of those whom he places under our care and custody. How much more true is that of priests who are going to be responsible for an entire parish, or maybe a bishop who's responsible for an entire diocese, or a pope who's responsible for the entire world? So that masculine journey should not just be thrown away. That would be in a modernist feminist culture. We wouldn't want that. Men should be men and women should be women. That is still true for future priests. It's not less true simply because they go to seminary. So this is why parishes used to have boxing clubs in the basement.
Yep. Really what we're saying is that a seminary, like any good school for men, should have a physical component to it. Any school for boys, any school for young men should have a physical component to it.
Soccer,
basically. Yeah,
I would say lacrosse, but let's be real.
Now you love boxing, and again, boxing has that extra aspect of you're literally taking a punch in the face, so you get that experience, and that is good. But Lisa's point about the actual rites in that proper use of the term rite, where it's an actual ritual of passage. Yes, that's what the minor orders are. That's why we mentioned them, Lisa. But the idea of having a physical component to your education, that's very old and necessary. But again, like Susan said, that should be part of also, what boys are going through before they even get to the seminary portion.
Farming.
I
like that too. Farming is good.
Well, not everyone
You're
can
awfully
be on a
quiet
farm,
over there,
but
Dr.
anyway.
Stine. You're awfully quiet over there.
Oh, I just my main thought is there are reasons you don't see this stuff in parishes anymore, and it goes back to a lot of stories we get from former seminarians who say that they get run out of because they're too conservative, they get run out of the seminary. That there's the advent of girl altar boys. I don't think it can work with having a boxing club in your parish basement. I think the same culture that brought one got rid of the other. And maybe you need to return to a culture that allows the other and gets rid of the innovation. That's why there's been in the culture, it's not exactly a secret that there's been a war on masculinity, and it's the same is true in the church. Yeah. Same kinds of people in the church are waging a war on masculinity. That's why you see the German bishops talking about allowing women to preach. You want to drive men out of your parish, let women preach. Right. To be crass about it, it's true.
Yikes. But then they're hemorrhaging 100,000 plus a year, right? Like they're hemorrhaging huge numbers every year in Germany.
That would be a good year for them if it was only 100,000 a year. There were years they were losing 250,000 people out of the church in Germany.
How many
in a country that's
what's the population?
40 million people in it or whatever.
I mean,
40 million, 50 million. It's some California-ish, somewhere around there, basically.
Are there any
Maybe
Catholics left in the country? It's crazy. It's a crazy number.
Now this is where you get to define where you get to play the game of how do you define a Catholic. Because again, you're talking about a country where the laity are clamoring for transgender outreach ministry, and people are clamoring for the church to change its teaching on sexuality and at all imaginable phases of things, including contraception and premarital relations and all the rest of it. So again, there comes a point where how do you define what a Catholic is? And I don't have a good answer for that. Because, at the end of the day, we all sin. So we, in the moment, reject the church's teaching, but we don't make a institution in our lives of it.
Sure, but I think it's fair to create some sort of, bar and just to have the conversation, like minimum mass attendance rates or something like that. I mean, even if it doesn't completely describe what a Catholic is, a baptized, confirmed person. But, I think it's fair to go, well, if you tend less than say once a month, then, can you really be called a Catholic at that point? You got to have something in order to have the conversation. It can be tricky. Low Key says, morning, I think priests should have physical labor job, even if it's part-time. When I was in ancient Corinth, a month and a half, 2 months ago, whatever it was now, one of the, we were at the Agora, which is the marketplace, the meeting spots where everybody comes together, right? So debates are happening there, conversations, public proclamations are there. The shopping is done there. There are temples there. And one of the cells belonged to St. Paul, where he sold his tent wares. And I just walked around that place. I have video of it. I still have to do a lot with that. I'm working on that in the back end for our members. But I just remember just being there thinking like in one of these shops, it is ancient because you could see the outlines of these shops. And it's like one of these shops, St. Paul sat here and sold his tent wares while he wasn't proclaiming the gospel at the synagogue or over at the, you had the platform. You stood on top of that platform. And I stood up there too. It was a pretty cool experience. And you would make your proclamation. They'd give you like 6 minutes on the clock or something. Just to think about, that's what St. Paul did. He still made tents. He still did what he could in order to provide for his own means. So nobody could have anything against him. I'm okay though with providing for the full living of my priests, but I would love to see a more masculine priesthood. A priesthood that, acts more like men instead of effeminate, middle of the road. You're not so sure. I mean, would that solve all of our problems? No. But I definitely think it would be a nice step in the right direction. Philip says, Joe, my company Gunny had gloves for those with issues every Thursday night at field day. Now, did he do the boxing, or was just like if he had two Marines, two jarheads that are upset at each other, he'd like put gloves on them and let them work it out? Is that what he did? I'm not surprised. Doesn't surprise me in the least. Christine OFS, you are amazing. Bad bishops need to clean bathrooms, not to exalt themselves. Keep them grounded, Wow. I think you're right. That would be. Could you imagine if the bishop showed up to seminary once a week to clean the bathrooms? That'd be mind-blowing, right? That'd be a game changer.
Yeah. And that would actually reemphasize the idea of a bishop being, like the Pope is supposed to be the servant, right?
Of the servants.
Woo. Right. It would be an act of humility. That would probably go a long way to restore some faith among people. If you had a bishop who didn't have a track record of preaching error, or if he made a mistake, he corrected it, but it also was leaked by someone in the chancery office that, every Thursday he goes down to, the seminary or the orphanage or whatever and cleans toilets. That'd be amazing.
That would be. And if he never told anybody,
too much time.
If he never told anybody about it, that would even be better. Gentlemen, good morning from hell on earth, SoCal. No way, Christopher. Good. It says, Jake, you're the best, brother. That's a great way to get banned from the chat, is by trying to.
Not anymore. I've got moderator powers on my own channel now. It's great.
Yikes. Christopher, good morning to you.
Greg says, not kissing those bishops' rings for sure.
Yes.
No, he'll have a work ring and a ring, kissing ring and a work ring.
Yeah,
but that's hilarious. That is an example of what saints would do. There were all the saint stories of abbots and abbesses. Like oftentimes they insisted on, again, not to the detriment of the duties that they had as the head of their abbey or anything like that, but they would often insist on, taking part in those duties themselves, in the lowest duties and such, because, they wanted to maintain humility and make sure that they were being, it wasn't showy. It was, this is how I remind myself not to get, too big-headed about my position.
Glad you said it, not me. Hey, Roxanne, good morning to you. Now I just have that song in my head now from the 80s. Roxanne, how's that song go? I forget.
Anyone with a name that's in a song. Anyone with a name.
I will just. You don't want to have that association given the other lyrics to the song.
Yeah. No one with their name in a song wants to be reminded that their name is in a song.
I'm just being honest. That's all. I'm just I'm not trying to make the association.
Hey, Joe.
It just popped into my head.
Where are you going with that camera in your hand?
That's the problem with being old. You have a lot of junk rattling around up there. Jonas, good morning to you. It says, maybe this old earth will become hell and God will create new heaven and a new earth. Sounds like it, doesn't it? Cigar Mode is back. Good morning to you, Cigar Mode. I had a dream last night, actually.
About cigars?
We were on vacation someplace. And I'm sitting in the living room, and I want to say we were maybe even watching TV. I don't even know. My wife is sitting right next to me, and I'm smoking a big cigar. And I remember taking a photo of the cigar and posting it into the Telegram insider group saying, don't tell Jake. That's I'm telling you the truth.
That's a very specific dream because that's exactly what you would do if you were smoking a cigar on vacation.
100% true.
That's great.
And I just remember thinking, wow, I'm not even getting green.
How many people give me a hard time for smoking cigars? Why do you trad Catholics all smoke cigars?
Yeah.
Don't you know?
I don't. That's the kicker. I don't smoke.
Yeah.
I don't smoke cigars. I don't smoke pipes, not anymore. And that's why I thought it was hilarious. It was me smoking a cigar in my dream.
I'm still safe because we've yet to have a pipe smoking Catholic influencer do something really, really embarrassing this year. So we're
well, we used to have a pipe smoking Catholic influencer on the show, but then he rejected us. And now he doesn't want to come back.
I think he's a little sick of Catholic drama. As a convert, that's what.
Then
why
does he participate in it on his X feed?
Probably because he's sick of it, and so he's taking it out on people that he sees as responsible for it.
Yes. Okay, all right.
That's how that usually goes.
This is how we're healing things. That's
how people on YouTube work. That's how people on social media work.
Check the box.
You get annoyed by people's behavior on social media, so you stay on social media and attack the people who are annoying you.
I have a rule about not talking about other YouTubers unless I can say something nice or neutral about them.
There you go.
You're better than us.
Yeah,
you're better than us.
I couldn't help but report on the Cardinal Zen dunking on a certain YouTuber because it was Cardinal Zen dunking on a YouTuber. You have to know about that.
That is news.
I feel like getting a T-shirt with Cardinal Zen on it with like gangster glasses on. That would be like epic. But hey, Loki once says, please ask Dr. Stine if he still has family and friends in Portland, Oregon area, and if it's getting better or worse.
The crime rate, I do have family up there. The crime rate is higher now, way higher now than it was when I left in 2017. Just way higher. Like unbelievably so. Yeah.
That's terrible.
My family members are in denial about it, but if you can go read the crime statistics, and it's just exploded because you have district attorneys there who've done things like do catch and release on violent criminals. Like during Antifa riots, they were letting them go. A guy got murdered in the streets there because they thought he was a Trump supporter. And as far as I know, nothing happened to the
guy. Don Franco, good morning, says St. Teresa of Avila asked her sisters to be durable like soldiers. Mm-hmm. I find it, though, that maybe it's also true. Now that I'm thinking about it, I was trying to make a distinction in my mind about women religious versus men religious orders. It seems like women have always worked very hard. Like you got the Gower, Missouri Benedictines that are like, they have their farm and they work very hard for it. But that's also true for male orders too, right? Like I wonder if there's any correlation between male or female working hard, not working hard. That's kind of what I was trying to work out in my head, but probably not. They're probably either modernist and they're all kind of, modernist, or they're old school and they work really hard and they're ascetical and they wear the hair shirts and they do all the good stuff. Cardinal Pell smoked cigars. Did he? I don't remember that.
Well, that's the thing is like there's a difference between smoking them and then making it your identity that you smoke them, with whether it's cigars or pipes. There's apparently Pope Benedict XVI enjoyed a Marlboro Red, at least on occasion. So.
On occasion.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we have any pictures of Pope Pius X smoking cigars, but he apparently had a box of them on his desk.
Not surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Leo XIII, wasn't he famous for enjoying wine that had cocaine in it or something? I mean,
yeah, oh yes, he allowed himself to be used on advertisements for it because he loved it so much. He carried a little flask of it.
Oh boy!
Yeah. This is why, by the way, I gotta say, this is why it's always hard to argue against Catholics who like marijuana, who are like, well, but look at all these popes. It's like,
at the time they just thought it was a
cigars aren't in the same category, but
yeah. Well, again,
they thought it was a medicine.
At the time, it was they thought it was a medicinal additive to the wine that helped you, be whatever. I mean, and what it's more comparable in that case is they thought it was something along the lines of how we treat CBD now, which taking CBD for medicinal purposes is,
well, even
there's no
nicotine
reason
has
to.
medicinal. Nicotine by itself has some medicinal value.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is a lot of the
And it's
filters
also-
and chemicals that they put
Yeah.
into modern cigarettes can cause lots of other issues.
And it's not being used in the same way where it's like mind altering in the same way that THC is.
Right.
If
And by the way,
anything, THC the way that people use weed is more comparable to the way that people abuse alcohol. That's where the real argument has to be made. Where
they just want to get high.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the real argument has to be made of like people who want to say, that is the best argument. They still don't win, but that is the best argument for someone who's pro marijuana to make is, it's just like using alcohol. Like if you're only using a little bit to take the edge off, type of thing, or this, what, that, and the other, it's just as acceptable as alcohol. And that's where the argument has to be made and where you have to basically make the distinction of how, weed is always mind altering in that way, whereas alcohol,
and they've
in moderation
genetically
isn't.
modified their plants to increase the effect of the THC.
Right. The marijuana, like what the Rolling Stones were smoking at Woodstock, is not even nearly as powerful. It's the stuff that's like the low grade stuff now sold in the United States.
Yeah.
It just is. So it's practically a different plant than what they were doing.
Yeah, Christino FS says, I listened to the video yesterday. Someone called it a nothing burger. Jobs are concerned, as you say, Joe, for employees, but this could have been prevented. I see John Henry Weston as the right TLM plan going forward. So I wouldn't say it's nothing burger. There were very serious accusations against John Henry Weston on donor management and donor funds, misuse of donor funds. Those are the far more serious accusations in that video. There were other accusations that, listen, opinions vary or whatever, but the donor ones I think are very serious. And I think that's the sort of the backbone. Then of course, there's the war over the soul of LifeSite News. And again, I had another insider source. I'm not going to tell you who. Yet another one reached out to me from saying, the conflict, the personality conflict between John Henry and the team was real. Whether you agree or not, I think is beside the point. It's the fact that there was an internal struggle between boss and employees. That is true and real. That's a leadership issue, has to be corrected one way or the other. You need your team to be on the same page, right? So leadership's job is to see to that. So John, that was his job as CEO. I like John Henry's opinion on the synodality. I like John Henry's defense of the traditional Latin Mass. And I think it's in John Henry's best interest to go do his own thing and let LifeSite News move forward. I also think LifeSite News did not do a great job, as Jack Burton, Jake pointed out very clearly yesterday as we discussed it. They just didn't do a great job with this whole thing as far as like the media, the public side of this. I believe that's because, and I think that video yesterday makes it clear, they went above and beyond to try to protect the reputation of John Henry Weston. Now, maybe they were doing that for selfish reasons, but they gave the guy 12-month severance. No one is getting 12-month severance besides the 1%ers of the world. Okay, that's huge. That's a massive thing. They went above and beyond, gave him 12-month severance, and when they first put out their first press release, it was like soft sell ice cream. It was nothing. They could if the allegations. Now I certainly don't know. Who am I? I'm just a knucklehead. I don't know if they're true or not. But if in fact it is demonstrably proven that John Henry mismanaged donor funds and misled donors, they could have fired him on the spot and given him $0 in severance and told the whole world, and they would have been justified for doing it. The fact that they didn't, that demonstrates something. And then when Steve comes out and says, oh, it's because he's trad, oh, it's because he's a radical, oh, it's because he's Sede, oh, it's because of whatever, all that does is demonstrate that there was a war on the board for the soul of the organization. That's true in most places. I hate to tell you that, but it's true in most places.
And really just I would be much more sympathetic if John Henry had basically just taken that. Oh yeah, that it's what Ellison said in their statement. This is we basically wanted to go in different directions. I'm going to go start my own thing, and here we go. And if that's where it ended, but again, like he got a 12-month severance, and then has his wife on to say she reacts to LifeSite canceling me, and I didn't even get a cake or a handshake or type of thing. Like that kind of like petty behavior doesn't mix well. I think I said this in the Telegram group. That doesn't mix well with then also trying to say, look, God is great. Everything happens for a reason, and I'm just moving on, keeping my head above it, everything. Like he's got mixed messages going on here, and that just makes it look, worse for this audio to come out. With alleging that this is how he behaves with this kind of attitude. It's like, see, that's not great. If he had stayed aloof and done exactly the thing that first LifeSite statement did, which even that first one I thought was not great, but at least it kind of tried to be, hey, he's just leaving, we're parting, whatever. If he had tried more of that and just moved on, and then these leaks came out, I'd be like, okay, LSM's trying to just like sabotage him at this point, without being liable for it, and that's just terrible behavior. But now it's just it's a nasty, slap fight of. They're canceling me for this. Well, actually, he did all this and stuff, and it's not good. No one's coming out looking great in this. But if anything, it's reflecting more poorly on John Henry so far with the audio that's come out, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and and as far as the internal survey, there's reports that they didn't interview all employees, that they selected some. I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. I'm not putting too much stock ultimately in some sort of survey or whatever. I'm just saying the real serious allegation was on donor management, donor funds. Those are very serious in the 501c3 world. And then some of these other issues are obviously there's an internal struggle for the nature of their apostolate. And, families do that. Families struggle over those types of things. But they have to be able to get along. They have to be able to find ways to work out their differences and solve their arguments, and clearly what we're seeing is not that. So for the best, and again, I default to I like John Henry Weston, and I want to see him continue, and I'm glad he's going to create his own thing. That's the best for John Henry, but I want to see LifeSite News continue. Their staff deserves to keep a job. I just don't like this idea that there's so many people like, no, LifeSite News needs to crash and burn now because of what they did to John Henry. That's vindictive. That is not Catholic.
The average employee there doesn't deserve to be punished because of a leadership fight.
The average employee didn't get nearly as much money as John Henry got in a salary or benefits or treatment. So I don't feel bad for John Henry in that sense, because John Henry's going to do just fine. He's got a huge support group. It's going to support him and love him. And whatever he does, they're going to be right there for him. Praise God. But what's going to happen to some of these employees when they get laid off? Do you think they're going to go get jobs at EWTN? No. You think EWTN is going to hire them? No. Why? Because they were with LifeSite News. Why? Because of the labeling that some of those editorial decisions John Henry made now puts them in the same light. So what are they going to go do exactly? You think New Daily Compasses is paying livable wages for a bunch of new reporters that are needing jobs because it all went under? No, I'm sorry. Listen, everybody move on. Everybody do your thing. You do your thing. And we'll all be happier for it. We'll all be happier for it. And I honestly and sincerely hope that John Henry doesn't just get into bed with Steve Bannon. I really don't. I don't think it's in John Henry's best interest personally, even if Steve Bannon's a great guy. Will GW. It's so easy to manage someone out and make them look worse than they are by secular corporate standards. I know it's the way of the world, but there are some things that seem overblown, and you might be right. We ought to move on as well. Improxima says. I'm trying. Yeah, I don't intend to talk any more about it, really. Yeah.
Again, the thing is, like, if you just look at it from an objective perspective of, LifeSite, the approach LifeSite taking is meaning they're losing donor dollars and are going to collapse, and that will end up with everyone there being out of work. And if the CEO is responsible for that direction, well, in the secular world, that's a reason to replace the CEO, And that again could have been enough of it. People would still complain like, oh, that means that LifeSite News is going soft. And it's like, well, if either they're going to let all their employees lose their work, or they're going to keep going, or they're going to try and change direction in some way to stay afloat, type of thing. That's a legitimate, objective argument to make and issue to try and solve. So it's also gotten into just now mudslinging. So
Max says we know more about the CEO at the Coldplay concert than we do about the guy who shot Trump. Oh, speaking of. I couldn't believe that. This is so cringy. The Babylon guys talked about that last night. They played the little video clip of these people at the Coldplay concert. It was passed around the internet, and they were apparently cheating on their spouses. So their families are destroyed. And the guy puts out a press release responding to it. So, I'm reflecting now. Now you're reflecting. Oh, you're reflecting now that you got busted with your mistress at the Coldplay concert. Yeah, better. But I must say, I am deeply troubled that Coldplay would take advantage of complete strangers, putting them in the spotlight, blah, 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 blah. Dude, you just destroyed your marriage and now you're ruining your kids' lives because you decided to cheat on your spouse. Shut up is the answer to that. Shut your mouth. That is ridiculous. Ugh. You triggered me, Mac. Thanks, pal. It was a Friday, and I was feeling gleeful, and now I'm angry. SC Webb Susan says it sounded like John Henry was running things like one with a small mom and pop. Laws and regulations look at those decisions he made through legal lens, not taking sides, but employees sounded like whiners. I'm sure some of them are. That's also true for every organization. You are going to get whiners. You are going to get people who can't take a beating. You are going to get people who don't like it when it gets rough or uncomfortable, or when you ask them to do things and they don't want to do them, or more work. I mean, there's no question that all of those dynamics are true, because that's true everywhere, right? It's true everywhere. How many times have you been in a situation where you and your coworkers are like, golly gee willikers, I really love my boss who gives me more work today, or asks me to do something I don't believe in. It's like just like that's life. That's part of it. It's just part of the equation, and it's never easy. But I can tell you this: leaders are always supposed to find ways around that. They're always supposed to find ways to improve the dynamic, find ways to win the loyalty of their employees, to inspire their employees to do harder work, more work. That's part of being leadership. Part of being leadership. Somebody said, who was it? Changing the subject again. Oh, it was Barbara. Barbara, welcome back. Good morning to you, Barbara Rademacher. I'm so worried about Pope Leo going to Israel. Why? Honestly, I didn't want Pope Leo to travel, but I kind of want him to go to Israel. I don't want him to go to the Wailing Wall, though. If he goes to Israel, no Wailing Wall. That I'm not up for that.
They'll think he's already been there because he's wearing a little hat. So
his yarmulke. No, don't go to the Wailing Wall, Your Holiness. Instead, go to Gaza.
Don't we want him to go to Moscow? Doesn't that mean something's happening?
He can go to Moscow on the way back. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. We'll make it a twofer. We'll make it a twofer
when the
special.
Pope goes to Moscow.
The Pope goes to Moscow.
Yep.
Now I want him to go to Holy Family Catholic Church at Gaza, and then I want to go.
It would be very symbolic for him to go there.
It would be Wojtyła in Poland again.
Yep.
It would be epic. Pope Leo going to Israel. Could you imagine? Artie says. Susie, good morning. Let's just pray for LifeSite News and John. That's exactly what I'm doing, Susie. He's praying for both. I'm happy to see both.
I got angry comments from people for citing LifeSite News in a video a few days ago.
Yeah. That's the thing is if you're canceling your subscription to LifeSite News, does that mean, okay, you don't want, Michael Haynes to keep reporting on the Vatican? You don't want,
there's a whole list of employees over there.
Again, if you believe in certain, work that they're doing, you should support them. It's not about just, one person in that way.
I agree. Marmar, of course they'll go to the Wailing Wall. The popes before him did. I know, and that's what I'm afraid for.
Oh, yeah.
That's my only reservation. I think it would be so powerful if you went to the Holy Land, refused to go to the Wailing Wall, and went to Gaza. That would be so epic. I think it would help to bring, dare I say, I believe it will bring an end to hostilities there. I think it's that powerful. It would be that powerful of a moment that love him or hate him, right? Regardless of how you feel about Pope Leo personally. The fact that he leverages the power of the chair of Peter to do this, I think is where the power lies. It's where the impact is. It's not unlike JP2 going back to Poland. Understanding the optics, the power of those optics, which is why I say, what do I want to see out of my bishops? I want them to put their crozier, I want to grab their croziers, put on their miters, stand in the public square, and do powerful things, preach powerful truth, because the power of their office is being brought to bear. And I would love to see it. Flying Tigers, hey to you, my friend. AKC783, good morning to you. Says, how about prayers for all involved with the situation at the Coldplay concert? What would Mary Magdalene say? Go and
she would
no
say
more.
they should repent.
She would.
Yeah.
Which they didn't. They played the victim.
At least not yet.
At least not yet.
Yeah, Coldplay doesn't care what happens to their audience either.
Yeah,
let's just be honest. Yeah. I mean, they were getting clicks.
They're just a rock band who thinks they're U2.
They're just getting clicks. Linda Ann Wheeler says, I just posted LifeSite news articles lately. Yeah, I still do. Of course I still do. And I guess this is probably going to get me, uninvited to certain circles, I suppose, but that's fine. Whatever. Like, who was I anyway? It is what it is. I'm just trying to say what I think needs to be said. I just believe that there needs to be a more balanced approach to that. Beverly says, Joe, amen if they spit on Christians. And they do spit on Christians. The Wailing Wall is cringe. I don't understand. I get the idea
it's not even part of the temple. It's an old Roman fortification.
And at best, you can say that.
Yeah, I know.
At best, all you can say is the temple was near there. And I get the sentiment. I do get the sentiment. Like there's this lost thing and you want to get as close to that lost thing as you possibly can. And that lost thing used to be where God's presence was. But when he said something greater than the temple is here, like is in our gospel from today, and destroy this temple and in 3 days it'll build it up. When he said those words, that temple was empty. There was no Ark of the Covenant in there. There was no Shekinah inside there. Anybody could have gone into the Holy of Holies. It didn't just need to be the high priest, because there was no presence of God in that temple. Because the ark had been removed for the Babylonian exile, and they didn't get it back. And furthermore, go read Josephus in his Jewish Wars, when the Roman army surrounded the place, and they were about to slaughter 1 million people in a massive bloodbath. The priests are overheard hearing the voices say, let us remove ourselves from here. The condemnation is stark and huge. Why? Because they failed to recognize the time of their visitation, because they failed to accept their Messiah. The point to this is God put them in punishment, not because he hates them, but because he loves them. God punishes those whom he loves. That's the book of Hebrews. So he wants their conversion. He's working towards their conversion, but they're being hard-hearted. They're being obstinate, and he has to continue to punish them until they loosen their hearts of stone, become hearts of flesh, and they come home to the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, which is the new Israel. AKC says, and with respect, Joe, the CEO said that he is reflecting, but you're not accepting that. Oh, I'm sure. I have no doubt he's accepting that, or reflecting today. He is absolutely reflecting today. This opportunity has provided him with lots of opportunity for reflection now. But 24 hours ago, he had no reflection on his heart whatsoever. The only reason why he's reflecting is because he got busted doing something horrible. If he'd have never been busted, he wouldn't be reflecting. He's forced to reflect. It's not because he wanted to. Repentance takes time. And listen, I share my sins publicly. I committed the mortal sin of abortion. Many mortal sins in my life, and I've given talks on them around the world. I've written books on them. Listen, I'll be the first to tell you everything I've done wrong, and I'm glad that we live in a time and an age of mercy. And I pray that this guy receives it. I pray that he can repair the damage he has done to his marriage, and her too, by the way. But let's not kid ourselves. The guy's only reflecting. He put out a statement to try to spin this thing as soft as he could. It's not because he was truly, maybe he is. I don't know. I can't read his heart, but he's only reflecting because he got busted. It's unfortunate. It really is. So repentance is only acceptable under certain conditions. No, that's not true. It is acceptable, AKC. But you can't pretend as though this guy was like, yeah, you know what? I was doing something wrong and now I feel bad for it. He's only saying it because he got busted. Mm-hmm. He's saying it because it became public.
Yeah,
that is what's motivating this.
That
motivation
was not a mea culpa.
It's not a mea culpa.
If anything, he literally got mad at Coldplay for putting the camera on him. That's what he said in the statement.
He actually says that in the statement. So let's pray he actually is repentant. Mm-hmm. That would be the best thing we can do is pray that he'll actually be repentant.
And her too.
And then and her too. And then he will do things like reparation in order to repair the damage that he has caused. Mm-hmm. And forgiveness is absolutely possible and desired. Why are we talking about biscotti? I can't have biscotti. And furthermore, it contains crack, i.e. sugar.
Yes. Well, we just discussed how cocaine is the traddiest of drugs. It allows Pope Leo XIII to write so many encyclicals. So, I don't know what the problem is here.
Jane says, Joe, did you mean they heard the voice of God talking when the Romans surrounded them and they surrounded? You should go read Josephus. Flavius Josephus, The Jewish Wars. You can look it up. There are free copies online. Fair warning, though, it is a very long piece of work. So you have to scroll through it to get to the pertinent parts, especially the parts where the Trajan's army has surrounded Rome. Freudian slip, sorry. Jerusalem. And he sees that there are witnesses who see angelic armies arrayed in battle in the clouds and making charges. So the army waits until Passover to surround the city, which meant it was completely full. And then they surround it and start to starve them out. By the end of the siege, they're so starving that there are stories of women eating their own children. Children were being abducted to be slaughtered and eaten. That's how horrible things got. And there was infighting inside the city, and it got to a civil war state. So it was just coming to its peak cataclysm. And then there's the voices in the temple that the priests overhear. Come, let us depart from here. And the doors are flown open. And then there's this it's almost like a reverse of the upper room experience when you hear the sound of rushing waters and the tongues of fire and then the speaking of tongues. It's like the reverse of that is going on there in Josephus's document. You need to read it for yourself, though. Maybe I'll try. Maybe I can look it up. And do you have a video on that on your channel, Dr. Stine? You ever read that?
No.
Maybe I'll do one of those. And 3 people will watch it. It'll be great. All right, we're running out of time here, Doctor. Yeah. We're keeping Dr. Stine on, and we've devolved into talking about sugar and cocaine.
That happens every after show.
Sugar, the original white candy, Yvonne says. Douglas, good morning to you. Sugar is the poison of the body. Amen, Douglas. You are right, spot on there. Liz Finch, sugar is a gift from God. But which God, Liz? I think we have to ask these questions.
It's funny how so many people have drunk the Kool-Aid on hating sugar.
Sugar is horrible. It's bad for you.
Ironic, don't you think?
Isn't it ironic?
It's a carnivore diet, so you're not going to find somebody sympathetic to big sugar here.
That's right.
It's all right.
Dr. Stine.
I'll make up for the both of you.
Always good to have you on the team, Dr. Stine. Fridays with Stine right here. But check them out, returntotradition.org. God bless you. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here Monday morning for another round of Catholic Take. Have a great weekend.
And we're clear.
No, I can still hear the sound of everybody unsubscribing.